If they were doing that and covering it up, that would be of the most immense significance.
China, can it be a friend and a foe?
Is this a spoof, Ruth? Is this
No, it is not.
This for real, or is this a spoof?
No,
this
is
hilarious.
Absolutely genuine.
Hello and welcome to Electoral Dysfunction from Sky News with me, Beth Rigby.
Me, Ruth Davidson.
And me, Harriet Harman.
Well, I have to say, lovely to see you all, ladies. Beth, lovely to have you in the country. It's becoming a rarity. Last time we saw you, you were having selfies taken in the world's poshest hotel in Sharm el Sheikh, right?
Yeah, we ended up in Sharm el Sheikh for this impromptu peace summit with Donald Trump. And at this time of the year, it's full of British tourists, and we're in a TUI holiday resort. So can you imagine these people having their lovely holiday? There's a Beth Rigby in a bloody stupid yellow suit, sort of strutting around, and they're all in their bikinis and their swimming trunks. Because Trump convened this thing 2 days before it was meant to happen, and it's full on holiday season there, it was actually really hard to get hotels. So we were even lucky that we got a room. The UK government, I think, moved quite quickly. And of course, they're UK tour operators there. But I think the French had to fly in that morning because there weren't any rooms left. Harriet, in all of your many years of working in government and opposition and travelling around the world, have you ever stayed in a really fancy resort while working? Have you been like carried around on a throne? You should be anywhere in the world.
When you're in government, you stay in the ambassador's residence, and in any city in the world, the very best house with the most beautiful gardens and with the swimming pool and with a grand piano with a picture of the Queen on it is the ambassador's residence. And the ambassadors, that's their actual home, and they have you to stay in their home. So it is incredible. You can get to be in a little bit of the UK, put your feet up and have a cup of tea in the most beautiful surroundings in any city in the world.
We're going to start with China this week.
We want to talk to you about the China spying case. This is basically about spying in the Commons, a couple of different people, one of them who worked for an MP, selling secrets to China. And there was a case brought, and the case has collapsed. Now, it's pretty complicated. If you've been following politics this week, you must be thinking, what the hell are they all arguing about? What's going on? It's confusing. I found it confusing. I've had to do a lot of reading around it to kind of unpack where we are. But we want to explain it to you because it matters. And there are some key questions that still need answering in terms of how the government, the civil service and the Crown prosecution, the people that decide to bring cases and try to prosecute them or not, how they all acted, as well as what it means about our relationship with China, whether it's a friend, can it be a friend and a foe? So we're going to try and unpack that for you. And we're going to try and do it in a way that you stay with us. So wish us luck. Aren't we? We're going to try and get you into it.
We're going to ease you in gently.
Ruth, do you want to ease them in gently then? Come on. Ease us in, Ruth.
So there's a lot of he said, she said about this China affair, and everybody would be forgiven if they got, if they lost the train here of exactly what's been going on and what's happened. But just off the back of it, one of the things that I think is the most amusing that's happened this week is a government security agency that I've never heard of, and I've been involved in professional politics for over 15 years, called the National Protective Security Authority. Who are they? Who knows? They've issued guidance for all MPs, peers and their staff for how not to get catfished by the Chinese off the back of it. I mean, they've called it something else, but that's basically what they've done. And I need to read you this. This is hilarious, what's come off of it. All people that are like MPs or lords or anything like that need to make a note of odd social interactions. And they've defined odd as approaches of those that are vague, involve flattery, of overt flattery, in fact, or pressure to respond quickly to avoid missing out. So essentially somebody trying to sell you a over 50s life insurance plan. Sounds like that. They've got to encourage all members to use their instincts if something doesn't feel right. And we've been specifically told, Beth, pin your ears back, to be sceptical of diplomats, journalists, academics and lobbyists who might actually be foreign intelligence agents /
Is this a
spies.
spoof, Ruth? Is this
No,
for,
it is
is
not.
this for real
This
or
has
is
been
this a spoof?
no,
this is
is
hilarious.
absolutely genuine.
I mean,
So,
most of my interactions would have fallen into any of those
What,
categories,
on
except
social
for the
info?
flattery bit, which I didn't get enough of, or indeed
Well,
any
well,
at
see,
all.
I'm at the other end of that because I am strongly Presbyterian Scottish that thinks that every time I deign to set my foot in London, it is full of fake people giving you fake flattery all the time. Because, you know, the highest form of praise you can get in Scotland is, that was all right. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, in London, it's up, oh, darling, you were wonderful. Oh, darling, that was amazing. Oh, moi, moi. Like, just absolute false nonsense. But
So you're impenetrable anyway. They're not going to get to you. You're not going to fall for it.
Well, do you know, but I think there are people in Westminster that do fall for flattery because I cannot account for, in any other way, the number of men in their 50s and 60s with a paunch who are balding, have dandruff and halitosis, that seem to think that 20-something-year-old women are very interested in them and they're going to make a pass at them. So unless they're falling for some level of flattery and it's gone to their head, and they think that they are actually the world's greatest lover, do you know what I mean? Like, it's pathetic, frankly.
Well, in case they don't understand the guidance that you've read out or don't see how it applies to them, all they need to do is watch Slow Horses, because on this week's episode, we've seen Roddy Ho being caught in a honey trap. So it's very topical. You just need to look at that to work out how not to, believe a honey trap.
Basically, what we've had in Parliament this week is an episode of Slow Horses. It's having the secret part of the secret intelligence services being brought into the open. So Beth, give us the Janet and John version of this.
Yeah, okay. The Janet and John version. Look, there is, in all seriousness here, there is an almighty row going on about allegations of spying, the government's relationship with China, pertaining to both the previous and current governments. And it's bloody complicated. So we've promised you the too long didn't read version. So I'm going to whiz through it. Then we're going to get on to whether we are friends or foes with China. So look, here's my 60 seconds. Stay with me. This is the summary of it. There were two men called Christopher, and the accusation was that they were spying for China, which they deny. They were charged. There has since been lots of digging as to why it collapsed. The Crown Prosecution Service said there was not enough evidence, and then the government said it wasn't their fault, that this had nothing to do with them, even though the Crown Prosecution Service was asking for additional witness statements from the government. The Tories have accused the current government of a cover-up, saying that the government's too weak to stand up to China. And the current government is saying this is nothing to do with us. The case was charged under the last government, and it was because of what the last government did in terms of legislation around China and how China was prescribed that meant that the case has now collapsed. So there's a bit of to and fro between the Labour government and the former Conservative government ministers about who's to blame. And there's also a massive question here about why did the Crown Prosecution Service think that they could charge and then drop the case?
And we did find out a bit more on Wednesday night. So there's been developments through the week. So we got more details about what these two Christophers, Christopher Cash, Christopher Berry, one of whom worked for an MP in Parliament, were accused of. And that's because the government published its witness statements this week, which is the Crown Prosecution Service asked the government, both the last Tory government and this current Labour government, to give a witness statement as to what whether China was a threat to the UK, what its threat level was it a foreign actor or agent? And we saw those statements. They were then released. So we saw statements. They were compiled by the Deputy National Security Advisor, who's a man called Matthew Collins, who's become quite important in all of this. He wrote them. Keir Starmer stood at Prime Minister's questions and said he wrote them essentially in a bubble, didn't discuss it with ministers, didn't discuss it with his boss, the National Security Advisor. And he wrote 3 witness statements to the Crown Prosecution Service because they asked for them. And the CPS said they weren't strong enough, essentially. And there's a lot of toing and froing between Labour and the Tories on why they weren't strong enough.
Obviously, it matters a lot that we don't have people working in Parliament selling secrets and
Yeah.
spying. So the fact that there was a charge against these people was very important. And the thing about charging is that under the Official Secrets Act, it's not down to just the Crown Prosecution Service to decide there should be a charge in this case. There's an extra high bar you have to go through. Then we get to a situation where it comes into the court and the Crown Prosecution Service pull the plugs and say, no, we haven't got enough evidence. So the Crown Prosecution Service is the prosecution authority. The police investigate, or other organisations investigate, but when it comes to taking a case to court, it's the Crown Prosecution Service that does that. And the head of the Crown Prosecution Service is the DPP. So when the Crown Prosecution Service dropped the case and it didn't go to trial, there was a lot of dismay and there was questions asked in Parliament. So the Director of Public Prosecutions, who's the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, wrote a very unprecedented letter to the chairs of the select committees in Parliament saying, it's not my fault that we couldn't go ahead with the prosecution, and pointed the finger at government. Then Kemi Badenoch, as leader of the opposition, jumped on this and said, the Labour government is not protecting national security. It wants to cozy up to China. It intervened in this prosecution, and that's why the prosecution was dropped. And Keir Starmer is saying, no, we did not intervene at all. Now, I think Kemi Badenoch is wrong on this, and I also think she's taken an enormous risk, because normally national security is just one of those issues where parties all work together on it. And the National Security Advisor will often brief the leader of the opposition on key issues. And it's very unusual and I would say unwise and downright wrong to be trying to gain political advantage out of a national security question.
Just to jump in there, in the Commons yesterday, in the House of Commons at Parliament, Prime Minister's questions, Kemi Badenoch was actively accusing the Prime Minister of trying to get the CPS to drop the case, or his ministers to drop the case, to influence the Crown Prosecution Service. And he was clearly saying to her, that is not true. You are playing politics with national security. And they got into a very political battle. The government said yesterday they were going to publish the witness statements by the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins, and they were going to publish those to prove the case that they hadn't tried to influence the trial in any way. But there are some questions for the government, because why has Collins, the Deputy National Security Advisor, included some political paragraphs in those statements, such as the Labour government's latest position on China is in those statements? So there are still questions. I mean, Ruth, you heard Harriet say that she thinks it's really bad for Kemi Badenoch if it turns out the government are exonerated. She's playing politics with this. But what do you make of it in terms of the kind of questions still standing?
So I think there are questions still standing. I also think there was a point that there was a stage in that process that was missed, because I thought Harriet's explainer was really, really good. And then she kind of got into the politics of where Labour and Tories are having a fight. And she missed the step, which was when this first collapsed, the CPS, so that's the Crime Prosecution Service, the people in charge of whether this goes to trial or not, whether they take it to trial or not, wrote a letter saying, we tried to bring this to trial. We asked for evidence from the current government, so the government that's in now, the Labour government, and it wasn't enough. And we asked again and again, and we didn't get enough evidence from them to take this to trial. That's why it's collapsed. That's why these guys have now been exonerated, essentially. And the immediate response from the Labour government, including Keir Starmer, was, no, it wasn't us that didn't give the evidence. It was the last Tory government. The only thing that matters is what the Tories did. They didn't do it right. It was designated wrong. under them, and there was nothing we could do. So it's not us that's collapsed this, it's the Conservatives. And I think the difficulty that both parties have got into here is they're trying to defend themselves, and the only way they know how to defend themselves is to attack each other. And if it was just a Labour versus Tory attack, Labour would win because it has the biggest microphone, because it's the government. But the fact that the Tories had all of these people that are independent saying, actually, Keir, that's not right, that's not true, meant that the first kind of round of this went to Kemi. Now, it may well be, and we don't yet know yet, whether she's overreached herself here by saying that rather than just the current government not providing enough evidence for the prosecution, which is what the CPS's original explainer was, that we didn't get enough from them, by going further and saying that there was active interference in some way. You know, that's a different charge. The idea that we didn't want to help the CPS, we weren't going to give them any extra help, is different from saying we actively stymied it. There is a line there, and it's where does that line fall? But it's got so complicated, I kind of think there's a plague on all your houses here. I do think that when politicians get too in the weeds shouting at each other, the public just turn off, but it matters. Like, we need to know whether our government is compromised. We need to know if foreign actors and agents, whether it's China or Russia or others, people that are active threats, are, you know, stealing intelligence or, you know, getting inside track on stuff, or are affecting the decisions the government's making, and whether the people that are working in Parliament are vetted and are honest people. And there's also one of the two Christophers has spoken out, one of the two guys originally charged, saying, look, we've not had a trial. I lost my job. I've not had a trial. I can't explain myself. Like, I've been given no platform. I've just been denigrated from the dispatch box from here to eternity and back. So it's really unsatisfactory on all sides, I think.
On an issue of national security, you cannot leave it like that, with mud being thrown and accusations being made. And therefore you need somebody to look at all the documents and actually be clear what happened. And that's why I'd suggest the right people to do this is the Intelligence and Security Committee, which is a cross-party parliamentary committee which can look at all the documents, because unlike other parliamentary committees, they're not actually elected MPs. They're appointed because they've had to be cleared at the highest level of national security. So they will be able to look at all the documents. The question is, whose fault was it that the case was pulled? Was it the CPS's fault? Should they have gone ahead? Or was it the government's fault? Did they interfere? And those are such key important questions, not least because one of the most important things in this country is that we have an independent prosecution service. It's not down to the government to decide you should stand in the dock, you should be charged, or you shouldn't. The government is elected to run the government, but it does not decide who stands trial and who goes to prison. So you have to have an independent service. So I think that it's really important that this is looked at quickly, and then a report is there. And my betting is that actually the CPS, for one reason or another, just lost their confidence on this case, although they had already decided and had Solicitor General's approval that this case was fine, that there was enough evidence in the file, and they could have gone ahead to prosecution.
One of the things that was really odd about that Keir Starmer said when he was at the dispatch box at Prime Minister's questions was that this guy Matthew Collins, the Deputy National Security Advisor that was providing the evidence, didn't speak to anybody else about it. So he didn't speak to his boss, the National Security Advisor. He didn't speak to any ministers. He didn't speak to anybody else. He alone made the decision in a bubble. And there is a question about why. Why did he not refer up? Why did he not have broader conversations? So there is a question as to why none of this got put up the chain. Particularly if it was going to be the most significant espionage trial in the country since the Cold War, why was it one person and one person alone that was making decisions about what to include?
I think the answer to that is because this person, Matthew Collins, who was giving the witness statement to the Crown Prosecution Service, was giving a statement as to what he knew, because he was in post at the time, as a matter of fact. And that's what would have gone into the file and formed the basis of the decision that there was enough evidence to charge.
But if it was only about writing down matters of fact, then why is he cutting and pasting passages about Labour's position on China from their 2024 manifesto, which is what he did to cut and paste that into his third submission. So I don't understand why, if he didn't have to refer it up because it was only facts, why is he taking political language, cutting it and pasting it from the Labour Party manifesto document and putting it in there? Because that's not a fact.
Yeah, he did put that in, and I would expect when that came onto the desk of the Crown Prosecution Service, they would think, but that is interesting, but completely irrelevant, because it's not a matter for the court what is the current policy of this government towards China. The question is, did these people actually sell secrets to a state which was at that time regarded as a threat to national security? Not now, but then. You can't do retrospectively, okay, now we regard China as a threat, and therefore what you did, which might not have been an offence at the time, is now an offence.
Yeah, the point that the government were making in the Commons yesterday, that the Prime Minister was making, that because his argument was because the previous government hadn't updated legislation, they hadn't characterised China as a threat to the extent to which the case could be prosecuted. And that's why they are laying the blame on the Conservative government and saying that in a way that it's beyond their control, because this has to refer to how China was viewed at the time the charges were made. But I think it is really confusing, and I think that, as you're saying, Harriet, I think that actually the best way to do it is because it's become a political football between two political parties. And I think that the public deserve clarity on what happened and where the fault lies, and how this cannot happen again. Because at the heart of it, as you said, a case has collapsed of two people accused of spying, and one of them was working in Parliament for an MP. I mean, do you think that the government will have no option, really, Harriet, to hold a short inquiry on this, pass it to the Intelligence and Security Committee?
Well, I think the government could say they've done an inquiry internally themselves and that they've looked at every single document and they've spoke to every person who's engaged, and this is what they think is the answer. But the difficulty is would that have any credibility in a situation where they are being accused by the Crown Prosecution Service? So you need somebody who's slightly stepped back from the situation. And the fact of the government raising the question of the fact that the previous government, the Conservatives, hadn't replaced the Official Secrets Act quickly enough with the National Security Act, I think is a complete red herring. And I think that they shouldn't have raised it, because the only thing that matters is what was the law at the time and what was the evidence at the time. So I think this is important. It is about the importance of national security. It is about how robust our prosecution system is. And it's the integrity of the government is now at stake. And therefore, I think the only way out of it is to have this an inquiry by the Intelligence and Security Committee, which is members of the House of Lords and the House of Commons from all parties. And when it says something, it's always listened to everybody, all the security services, the prosecution people, all the ministers will all talk to it. And when they issue a report, it will be authoritative and definitive.
At the heart of it, the reason this also matters is that over the kind of umbrella over all of this is whether the government are trying to cozy up to China in order to get economic investment into the UK. There's a very live discussion at the moment. They've got to take a decision on allowing a China super embassy. A planning decision is imminent. It's been reported that the US is very anxious about this, that they do not want this Chinese super embassy. And this is the politics over this case, which is why it's kind of given a lot more momentum, if you like, which is the Labour government trying to make difficult issues for China, or very live issues about China spying, go away in order to curry favour with Beijing. I mean, that is the politics of this as well, isn't it? And that's partly why Conservatives are suspicious.
If they were doing that and covering it up, that would be of the most immense significance, and it would be absolutely reprehensible. So it's really hard to overstate how serious these issues are.
If you remember, there was a huge fight under Theresa May about whether Huawei, the mobile phone manufacturer, was going to be able to get this contract that would deal across sort of mobile phone infrastructure in this country, because the Americans were very, very worried that there would be a backdoor in the technology that would leave us open to threats. So this, in a sense, it's blown up, but it's not new. It's come along for a long time. And when you've got a very, very economically integrated world, when you've got a technology revolution that's happening right now, and one of the countries at the cutting edge of that technology is China, and one of them is America, and they want economic advantage for their own companies, as well as they want security advantages and security guarantees. It makes it very difficult.
The witness statements, if anything, I would argue, point to the Crown Prosecution Service not kind of basically not sticking with a prosecution that they've already decided to charge and have had approval from a previous Solicitor General to do that. So why did they bottle it? And is it because something the government did, or is it something that was going on within the Crown Prosecution Service? But quite frankly, we're not going to get to the bottom of it at the dispatch box with Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer having argy-bargy over it. So I think that the only way, and, I've seen a few of these before, some sort of short inquiry seems to be inevitable now, doesn't it? Just to clear it up one way or the other. And then we can all move on. But Harriet, your argument is if it gets cleared up and it shows that the government is exonerated, you think politically that looks really damaging for Badenoch, because the Prime Minister's accusation that she's playing politics with national security then has more legs.
If it turns out that actually Kemi Badenoch's accusations were wrong, I think she will have to make major apologies and really retract everything she said and eat humble pie. And where will that leave her standing on an issue where her judgment has been shown to be so flawed?
Harriet is saying that if the way in which the Tories have taken it has overstretched, that's a pretty big egg in the face for Kemi. I think there's an if there, because there are so many questions that are still unanswered. We just don't know. We just don't know. So
look, we're recording this on Thursday. Who knows where we're going to be by next Thursday? But hopefully it's a bit clearer. But look, it was an absolutely jam-packed week, wasn't it? I mean, jam-packed.
It was jam-packed, so jam-packed that we couldn't even get onto the election that's happening in the UK right now, which is who becomes deputy leader of the Labour Party. But Beth, you've been all over it for us, because we've got a bumper YouTube special for electoral dysfunction. Beth, you've interviewed both Lucy Powell and Bridget Phillipson back-to-back. They're both running to be the deputy leader. That role obviously vacant after Angela Rayner had to resign. So do please go into wherever you get your podcasts, download that, watch, listen. And Harriet, I mean, who have you voted for? Who's going to win?
I think both are really good candidates, and I think that what's important about these things is winning an election is one thing, and there's all the competition and the interest in that. Winning the election is one thing, but what's really important is how you do the job. And I think either of them could do the job excellently.
That's Harriet's way of saying, I'm not telling you, Ruth.
I know, wasn't it? That was all of her political experience as an ex-deputy leader yourself.
Whoever gets it, but whoever gets it, I will support them to do their very best in what is a very important job.
And that race is going to be decided, I think, on October the 25th. You've got a cabinet minister in Bridget Phillipson that sort of arguably would be the Starmer choice. And then you've got Lucy Powell just out of government. She lost her job in the reshuffle, and she is now kind of running as an outsider, saying, I'm going to be the voice of the party. And so I've sat down with both of them.
I think if Lucy Powell gets elected, she's not in the cabinet. I think Keir Starmer should offer to put her in the cabinet. I know she's run on the basis that she's not in the cabinet, and she said, I don't want to be in the cabinet. But I think actually if you are the deputy leader of the Labour Party, the party members would want to see you in cabinet as part of the top team. So I think she should think again, and I think he should make a generous offer, and the party would like to see the deputy leader in the cabinet. The deputy leader has always been in the cabinet before, and I think he should make her that offer if she gets elected.
I'm gonna kind of dangle it to you all to make you kind of jump in, and this is discussed at length in these interviews.
We also want to hear from you. We've talked a lot about what's going on, but we really, really love it when you get in touch with us. So please send us messages, please send us voicemails, please send us questions. If there's any questions about any of the stuff we've talked about that you want answers to, we will try to do that. The number to WhatsApp is 07934 200 444, or you can always email us at electoraldysfunction@sky.uk.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
I'm off to catch up with the traitors now.